Om Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasanna Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhi Tamastu Mavet Pishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. अगजानन पद्मार्कं गजानन महर्निशं अनेकदन्तं भक्तानामेकदन्तमुपास्महे श्री महागणपतये नमः गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्री दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां श्रीहयग्रीवमुपास्महे श्रीहयग्रीवमूर्तये नमः सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः उमा कोमलहस्ताब्ज संभावितललाटकं हिरण्यकुण्डलं वन्दे कुमारं पुष्करस्रजं வெற்றிவேல் முருகனுக்கு ஹரஹரோஹரா லோகவீரியம் மகாபூஜ்யம் சர்வரக்ஷாகரம் விபும் பார்வதி ஹிருதயானந்தம் சாஸ்தாரம் பிரணமாம்யகம் சுவாமியே சரணமையப்பா வாகர்த்தாவிவ சம்பிரக்தௌ வாகர்த்த பிரதிபத்தயே ஜகதः பிதரௌ வந்தே பார்வதி பரமேஸ்வரௌ ஸ்ரீ பார்வதி பரமேஸ்வராभ्यां நமः कोमलं कूजयन् वेणुं श्यामलोऽयं कुमारकः वेदवेद्यं परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव पीतांबरं करविराजित चक्रशंख कौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायं अतिसुन्दर मन्दहासं वातालयेशं अनिशं हृदि भावयामि कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचर गुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृते कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः कृष्णादेव समुद्भवो मम विभो कृष्णस्य दासोऽस्म्यहं कृष्णे भक्तिरचञ्चलास्तु भगवन् हे कृष्ण तुभ्यं नमः श्री गुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं नम्राणां सन्निधत्ते सततमपि पुरस्तैरणभ्यर्थितानपि अर्थान् कामानजस्रं वितरति परमानन्दसान्द्रां गतिं च इत्थं निःशेषलभ्यो निरवधिकफलः पारिजातो हरे त्वं क्षुद्रं तं चक्रवाटी ध्रुममभिलषति व्यर्थमर्त्यव्रजोऽयं श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं श्रीभट्टपादम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि वंशी विभूषितकरात् नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरात् अरुणबिम्बफलाधरोष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने കൈരണ്ടും കൂപ്പി ഞാൻ വീണ്ടുമീരക്കുന്നു നീരജലോചന നിന്നോടായി ഏതീനു മഞ്ഞനെ കുമ്പിടേണ്ടാത്തോരു രീതിയിൽ നീ എന്നെ പാലിക്കെന്നായി കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ. വെൽക്കം എവരിവൺ, ഗുഡ് മോർണിംഗ്. So we'll do a quick review of 4 today. Deepak, can you do one half of it?
Illa Rajesh, next half pandre. I'm just making something for my husband actually in the kitchen. Sorry.
No worries. Shobha, நீங்க பண்றீங்களா 4?
Oh, sure. Sri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Dasakam 4. Ashtanga Yoga Varnanam, Yoga Siddhi Varnanam Cha. Kalyata Mama Kurushvatavatim, Kalyate Bhavadupasanam Yaya, Spashtamashta Vida Yoga Charyaya, Ushtaya Shutavatushtimapnuyam, Brahmacharya Drudadadi Biryamaihi, Aplavadi Niyamaischa Pavitaha, Urmahe Dridamami Sukasanam, Pankajatyam Abhivabhavat Paraha, Taramantaranuchintya Santadam Pranavayum Abhiyamya Nirmalaha, Indriyani Vishayadadav Yadahritya.
Try that again. Indriyani starting ல
Indriyani Vishayadadav Bahrut Yasmahe Bhavatupasanon Mukaha.
Correct. And the third line, the third stanza first after Santatam, right? The first line there is a comma, okay?
Yes,
the last 2 lines are together. And the first 2 lines is a comma after Santatam.
Aspude Vabushite Prayatnado Dharaye Madishana Muhurmuhu Tena Bhakti Rasamandarardradam Udvahe Mabhavatangri Chintakaha Vispuda Vayava Beda Sundaram Vadvabushtushira Sheelanavasad Asramam Manasi Chintayamahe Jnana Yoga Niradastvadashrayah Jayatam Sagala Murti Mitrushim Unmishan Madhurata Hrutatmanam Chandramedara Rupamantaram Brahma Rupamaiteva Basade.
The third line, Chandra Moda. Meda or something you said, just Moda.
Chandra Modara Rupamantaram Brahma Rupamaiteva Basate. Tatsamas Vadana Rupinim Stidam Vatsamadhi Mai Vishwanayaka Asrida Punaradha Arit Punaradha Prachudau Parichudau Asrida Punaradha Parichudau Arabe Mahichadaranadhigam Ittamapyasana Nirbalo Lasatvatparat Suga Kalpitotsavaha Mukta Bhakta Kula Maulidam Gataha Sanjare Masuga Naradadivat Samadhi Vijaye Tuyah Puna Mankshu Moksharasiga Kramaneva Yoga Kramaneva.
Like Kramenava.
Okay. Moksharasiga Kramenava Yoga Vashya Manilam Shadashrayaihi Unnayatyaja Sushumnayasanaihi Shanaihi.
The Punaha first line kapran there is a visarga there, okay? Punaha.
Oh sure. Okay. Linga Dehamabhi Sandhya Jannato Niyate Twai Pare Niragraha Urdvaloga Udugitu Murtadaha Sartha Deva Karanair Niriyate.
So Sarda Meva. Im, right? Ma is there. Sarda Meva.
Sardameva Karanair Niriyate Agnivasara Valaksha Pakshakaihi Uttarayana Jushas Chadaivataihi Prabhito Ravipadam Bhavatparo Modavan Dhruva Padantamiyate Asito Damaharalaye Yada Sheshavaktradanush Manartyade Iyate Bhavadubhashrayastada Vedasah Padamadah Pureivava Atrava Tava Pade Tava Vasanne Prakruda Pralayedi Muktatam Vechaya Khalu Purabi Muchade संबिबित्य जगदण्डमोजसा तस्य चक्षुदीपयो महोनिल द्योमहत् प्रकृति सप्तकावृतिः तत्तदात्मगदया विशंसुकी यादिते पदमनावृतं विभो अर्चिरादिगदिमीतृषीं व्रजन् विच्युतिं न भजते जगत्पदे सच्चिदात्मक भवद्गुणोदयान् उच्चरन्तमनिलेश पाहि माम्. श्रीकृष्णाय परब्रह्मणे नमः.
Very good. Okay, we'll start with the fifth today. The fifth is around the evolution of the cosmos, which is Virat Purusha Utpatti Varnanam, Utpatti Prakara, description of the evolution of the cosmos. And then the sixth one, when it goes to that, once he describes how cosmos is getting formed, then the next is a description of the Lord as the form of the cosmos. So that is the Virat Purusha Varnana, description of the Lord in that form. So that is 6 today. Okay, so
Rajesh, your 10 minutes I'll be away and I'll join back again.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Narayani, you and Srilata Garu, you can be student for the first half. And Swami, welcome back. So Swami and Jayashri, you can be student for the second half. Okay. This chapter is the fifth chapter is like too technical also. Even it's very hard to understand because it talks about how core of the Mahat and everything is getting formed at the beginning of the cosmos and all that. So now we'll try to keep it at a fairly high level. Every couple of stanzas here and there, I'll explain. Okay. Stanza 1. Vyakta vyaktamidam na kinchida bhavate prakrita prakshahe mayayam gunasamya ruddha vikrutau tvaya gathayam hlayam no mrityuscha tadhamritam cha samabhut nano naratre sthitihi tatraikastvamashishyatah kila parananda prakashatmana. So he says, so like I think at some point we had discussed the various types of pralaya and everything, right? So there's the Prakriti pralaya is where Brahma has completed his 100 years. So when Brahma has completed his 100 years and it's the end of his term, at that time, then there is a complete dissolution. There's absolutely nothing that is actually existing. So here it says, Vyakta, Avyakta. Vyakta means anything which you can clearly define, which has a manifested shape. Avyakta is something which is not clearly defined. So anything which can be defined, anything which cannot be defined, everything is completely disappeared and it has all then merged into you. That's what it starts. So it starts with, right? There's absolutely nothing that exists at that point. And even all and this keeps coming at various points, right? Is the body itself, right? There are 3 types of bodies. The body which we are having right now is the Sthula Sharira, which is the actual physical form of a body which can do things, right? But even after death, right? Like your soul cannot travel. It always needs to have a carrier. So it's called as a Sukshma Sharira, which means it may not have the form that you're looking at me right now, but there has to be some carrier which is still carrying the soul around. So it says all of the things in this world still reside in you in that Sukshma form. And it also comes later. And I think one simple example which they give for a lot of common people like us to understand is a peacock has its feathers, right? And when before the rain time comes, the peacock is going to spread its feathers and then show to the peahen that it's got the feathers. But when the time is done, it just brings the feathers back in. So when you're looking at it, it might look like it doesn't have any feathers, right? But it actually has it. It's just not visible. So that is the very simple definition they say is at the time dissolution, everything is gone in. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, because it has to exist for it to come again. It is just existing inside you in a form which people cannot comprehend or people cannot see. And then that's what it is. So it says all the world completely is in total dissolution. And I think this is one key thing is that Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, the 3 gunas are in complete equilibrium. And as long as they're in complete equilibrium, there's nothing that is existing. Only when there is some disruption to it or some mix of things happening, then things start forming. So all of these things are complete equilibrium and they are just in a latent mode sitting inside you. So at that time, there is no death, there is no birth, there is no liberation, there is no day, there is no night, there's nothing. There's only you existing in your supreme consciousness as bliss. That's all. That is all that is there, and that happens at the end of every Prakrita Pralaya, end of the Brahma's period.
Rajeshji, Brahma's 100 years is how many years in
So
our terms?
So one Chatur Yuga, which is the 4 yugas, right? So Kali Yuga is 4 million years, like a 4,32,000, something like that, right? 432,000, so 432,000 years. Okay,
This
that's
100 years.
that's one Kali Yuga. Then you go to the Dwapara Yuga, it's 2x, 2 times that. Then the Treta Yuga is 3x that, so 432,000 times 3. Then Satya Yuga is 432,000 times 4. That is one Chatur Yuga. Okay. 1,000 Chatur Yugas is 1 day of Brahma, and 1,000 Chatur Yugas is 1 night of Brahma.
Okay.
Combined together makes kind of 1 day. Like when I say day, I mean like the like in our terms, more daytime and nighttime, right? So and then that is called what's one kalpa. It's called one kalpa is 1 day of Brahma. 1,000 Chatur Yugas is 1 kalpa daytime, 1 kalpa nighttime. And then 360 days forms 1 life of 1 Varsha of Brahma, and then 100 years of that is 1 year of Brahma, right? So the whole thing. Now, what Brahma then does is that that 1,000, that 1 kalpa, 1 day of Brahma, which is 1,000 Chatur Yugas, he has divided that into 14 manus to take care of it. So each manu gets approximately 71 point some years. So if you kind of look at the Sankalpam we say today, right? I have that written somewhere. So if you take the Sankalpam we are saying today, so it says, we say Dvitiya, and this is going to come later. So it comes Dvitiya Pararte, right? Para means half, portion of it. Dvitiya Pararte is second half. So it says Brahma has 100 years. So I'm in Dvitiya Pararte. I'm on the second half of Brahma's age, which means I'm after 50, right? So in Dvitiya Pararte, and then it says, in the Shweta Varaha Kalpe. So within that second half of the 50, we are in the first year, 51st year of Brahma. In the 51st year of Brahma, we are in the Kalpa, in the day of Brahma, which is called a Shweta Varaha Kalpa. Each day of Brahma has a name. Previous day was Padma Kalpa. This is Shweta Varaha Kalpa, is the name of the day of Kalpa. This Kalpa of Brahma, remember, has 14 manus. Okay. So in that day of Brahma, we was in Vaivaswata Manvantare. We are in the Manu, who is called Vivaswan is a son. Vivaswan's SUN son, Vivaswan. That SUN son's SON son is called Vaivaswata Manu. So that Manu is now the ruling Manu. He is the 7th Manu out of the 14 Manus of the Kalpa of Brahma, which is Shweta Varaha Kalpa of Brahma, which is in the 51st year of Brahma's life. Okay, now this, because this Manu also has 71 Chatur Yugas. Okay, so we say Ashta Vimshati Tame. Ashta Vimshati means 28. So out of this this Manu's 71 Chatur Yuga, we are in the 28th Chatur Yuga of this Manu. And in that 28th Chatur Yuga, we are in Kali Yuga. We are in the Kali Yuga portion of that. And then Shweta Varada Kalpe, Vaivaswata Manvantare, Ashtabhimchatame, Kali Yuga, Dvitiya Parar. So in that in that Kali Yuga, there's something that comes Pratame Pate. So that Kali Yuga, the 432,000 years, are divided into 4 parts. Out of that 4 parts, we're in the first part. We're in the first quarter of the Kali Yuga. So that is how you kind of narrow it down, right? So if you kind of think, when people say the world is coming to an end, the world is not going to come to an end. It's a long way to go for the world to come to an end, for Kali Yuga to come to an end, right? So that is the entire. So every so anyway, it's a long chart, right? A long minute explanation. But we are in the 51st year of Brahma, in that in the Kalpa of Brahma called Shweta Varaha Kalpa. In that we are in the 7th Manu. In that 7th Manu, we are on the 28th. Chatur Yuga that is happening. In the Chatur Yuga, we are in the first quarter of Kali Yuga. So that is the thing. But anyway, when the entire Brahma's life goes away 100, that's when it says the complete dissolution happens. There's absolutely nothing in this world. But at the end of every day of Brahma, there is also a pralaya that happens. In that pralaya, what happens is the general cosmos still remains, but all the entities in that completely go away. All of that goes, and that's going to come in the 7th, 8th, and 9th chapter. And all it's going to come. So we'll kind of cover it at that point. Okay. Anyway, so Vyaktamidam na kinchida bhavat. After it, you put a comma. Bhavat prakrita prakshaye, comma mayayam guna samya ruddha vikritau, comma Tvaya gatayam layam. Vyakta vyaktamidam na kinchida bhavate prak prakrita prakshaye mayayam gunasamya ruddha vikritau tvaya gatayam layam.
Vyakta vyaktamidam na kinchidabhavat prakrita prakshaye mayayam gunasamya ruddha vikritau tvaya gatayam layam. Vyakta vyaktamidam na kinchidabhavat prakrita prakshaye mayayam gunasamya ruddha vikritau tvaya gatayam layam.
Vyakta vyaktamidam na kinchid bhavat prakruta prakshaye mayayam gunasamya ruddha vikrutau tvaya gatayam layam.
Shibata Garu, in the first line, kinchida, I think you said kinchid, that's why it's just not landing for you.
Yeah,
Kinchida
kinchid.
bhavat. And then
Okay.
prakrita. You missed the prak.
Prakruta. Okay. Vyakta vyaktamidam na kinchida bhavat prakruta prakshaye mayayam gunasamya ruddha vikrutau tvaya gatayam layam.
No, mrityuscha tadamritam cha samabhut. You have a in and a na coming. Remove that in and put a it. Bhut, comma. Remove the in and put a it. Nanona ratrehe, put a is. Ratres stitihi. Put a visarga at the end and comma. Stitihi. Next line, that is goes away. Tatraikas Twama shishyataha is there. Put a ich sound. Shishyatah kila, comma. Parananda prakashatmana. No mrityuscha tadamritam cha samabhut. Nano naratre stitihi. Tatraikastvama shishyatah kila. Parananda prakashatmana.
No mrityuscha tadamritam cha samabhut nakno na ratre stitihi tatraikastvamashishyathah kila parananda prakashatmana. No mrityuscha tadamritam cha samabhut nakno na ratre stitihi tatraikastvamashishyathah kila Parananda Prakashatmana.
No mrityuscha tadamritam cha sambhut nano navratre sthitihi tatraikastvamashishyathah kila parananda prakashatmana. No mrityuscha tadamritam cha sambhut nano na ratre sthitihi tatraikastvamashishyathah kila parananda prakashatmana.
After that kila, there is a comma, okay, in the fourth line.
Oh.
Stanza 2. Kala karma gunascha jiva nivaha vishwam cha karyam vibho chillilārati me yushittvai tada nirlīnatāmāya yuhu tesham naiva badantya sattvamai bhoh shaktyatmana tishtatam no chet kim ghagana prasuna sadrisham bhuyo bhavet sambhavah. So when everything is merged, right, even the concept of time, like there's absolutely nothing, like you said. So that's why he says here that all tada, kala, time, karma, which is the karmas of all the jivas, right? So there's a, so like we said, right, although we can't see our karmas, but there is something that is defining what our karmas are, right? Because when I'm going to make a mistake, then I'm going to eventually, I'm building, accumulating karma. Just because I can't see it doesn't mean that concept of karma doesn't exist. So this karma is there. It's just recorded somewhere, somehow, right? So anyway, all these karmas that are there and all the gunas that are there, all the jivas which are there, and everything which is there, like we said earlier, is completely merged into you. And here he gives an example of, like we said earlier, is and another example is the Vedas also, they are you cannot say they are non-existent. I mean, they are not there, but doesn't mean that it is all disappeared. Because the example he gives is just like how, like there are certain things which are non-existent. And the example he gives here is like a Gagana Prasuna Sadrusham, which he says that you can have flowers, you have something called as a sky, but you don't have a flower in a sky. That is non-existent. He says like that, you cannot say these things are non-existent. They have to be existing. Otherwise, how can they come? The definition of how they can get produced is not there. The way they are existing is, like we said, they're sitting inside you in a form which is incomprehensible. That's when the creation and everything starts, it just comes out of you, like the example of the peacock thing which was. So that's essentially what the same summary as last time. It says you cannot say they're absolutely non-existing. They're all existing. They're just existing in a form inside you. And then when you decide which comes in the next stanzas, it comes out. Okay, that is the core definition of they're saying everything, including the jivas as well as all the memories, karmas, everything, they're all still there every time. So kalaha is there, put the ich sound. Kalah, karma, gunascha, jiva, nivahaha. So put a visarga there, jiva nivahaha, comma. Vishwam cha karyam vibho, comma. Chillilaratim eyushi. Chillilaratim eyushi, tvai tada, comma. Nirlinatam ayayuhu. Kalah karma gunascha jiva nivahaha vishwam cha karyam vibho chillilaratim eyushi tvai tada nirlinatam ayayuhu.
कालः कर्म गुणाश्च जीव निवहाः विश्वं च कार्यं विभो चिल्लीलारतिमेयुषि त्वयि तदा निर्लीनतामाययुः कालः कर्म गुणाश्च जीव निवहाः विश्वं च कार्यं विभो चिल्लीलारतिमेयुषि त्वयि तदा निर्लीनतामाययुः
कालः कर्म गुणाश्च जीव निवहाः विश्वं च कार्यं विभो चिल्लीलारतिमेयुषि त्वयि तदा निर्लीनतामाययुः कालः कर्म गुणाश्च जीव निवहाः विश्वं च कार्यं विभो चिल्लीलारतिमेयुषि त्वयि तदा निर्लीनतामाययुः
तेषां नैव वदन्त्य सत्त्वमयि भोः, शक्त्यात्मना तिष्ठतां, नो चेत् किं गगन प्रसून सदृशां, भूयो भवेत् संभवः. तेषां नैव वदन्त्य सत्त्वमयि भोः शक्त्यात्मना तिष्ठतां नो चेत् किं गगन प्रसून सदृशां भूयो भवेत् संभवः. नारायणी म्यूट लिखे.
तेषां नैव वदन्त्य सत्त्वमयि भोः शक्त्यात्मना तिष्ठतां नो चेत् किं गगनप्रसूनसदृशां भूयो भवेत् सम्भवः. तेषां नैव वदन्त्य सत्त्वमयि भोः शक्त्यात्मना तिष्ठतां नो चेत् किं गगनप्रसूनसदृशां भूयो भवेत् सम्भवः.
तेषां नैव वदन्त्य सत्त्वमयि भोः शक्त्यात्मना तिष्ठतां नो चेत् किं गगनप्रसूनसदृशां भूयो भवेत् सम्भवः. तेषां नैव वदन्त्य सत्त्वमयि भोः शक्त्यात्मना तिष्ठतां नो चेत् किं गगनप्रसूनसदृशां भूयो भवेत् सम्भवः.
Answer 3. एवं च द्विपरार्धकाल विगता वीक्षांसि शिक्षात्मिकां बिभ्राणे त्वयि चुक्षुभे त्रिभुवनी भावाय माया स्वयं मायातः खलु कालशक्तिरखिला दृष्टं स्वभावोऽपि च Pradhurbhuya gunan vikasya bidaduhu tasya sahaya kriyam. So here is where we're saying Dvipararda, the second Pararda of Brahma, which we spoke about, the second 50 years of Brahma, right? So when that kind of gets over, so now when nothing is existing and we said everything is merged into you. So here it says that for the whole process of creation to start, right? It says that you as you Supreme Lord, you only have a will to create. You just have to have that will. You are actually not doing any work. You are not part of the act of creation. Because remember, anytime we kind of, I think I might have said in some session, right? The way the differentiator is, if the God is doing something with an intention, that means he's bound by it. He's bound by the result of it. So he cannot say, I am going to create and then go create. He just thinks about it. And the moment he thinks about it, he says this whole process starts, right? And in the first chapter itself, right? I think it was, I was just going and checking. I think it was the 5th stanza of the first chapter where it says that even the Prakriti and all this, which is non-existent, just by you thinking about it, in creating the will to create. So Maya is now, everything is beginning to form. And the first thing that comes out, like we said earlier, is the concept of what is the Prakriti. And I think in the 15th chapter in Kapilopakyanam, it describes the Prakriti and all that stuff. It says all of these things are beginning to now come just because of your will to create. And when that happens, all these things gradually, one thing at a time starts coming. The first thing, an interesting thing, which even I don't have an answer here, it says from that also comes the impressions of all the jivas which were there. So let's say that 100 years of Brahma has passed now, and my karmas and all are somehow gone, and I've merged into, everybody's merged into the Supreme Lord. So here he says, when the creation starts, he says all your past impressions of your karma, these also all start coming out. Because like we said, nothing has completely gone. Everything is still there. It is just residing in, and now those things are coming out. So now I don't know the question that if you do a bad deed in your last birth, is it going to come again for the first time? I don't know the answer, but at least this one says that all of these things are beginning, all the past impressions of the jivas, everything now start coming out. So evam cha dvipararda kala vigata viksham si srikshatmikam, comma, so no pause in that line, bibhrane tvai, comma, chukshubhe tribhuvani bhavaya maya swayam. Evam cha dvipararda kala vigata viksham si srikshatmikam bibhrane tvai chukshubhe tribhuvani bhavaya maya swayam.
Evam chat vipararda kala vigata viksham sisrikshatmikam. And that's a comma out, yeah?
And the shikshatmika and end the letters for Maya.
Okay, come. Vibrane tvayi chukshube tribhuvani bhavaya bhavaya
Bhavaya Maya swayam.
bhavaya maya swayam. Evam chat viparartha kala vigata viksham sisrikshatmikam vibrane tvayi chukshube tribhuvani bhavaya maya swayam.
एवं च द्विपरार्धकालविगता वीक्षांसि सृक्षात्मिकां बिभ्राणे त्वयि चुक्षुभे त्रिभुवनी भावाय माया स्वयम् एवं च द्विपरार्धकालविगता वीक्षांसि सृक्षात्मिकां बिभ्राणे त्वयि चुक्षुभे त्रिभुवनी भावाय माया स्वयम्.
Maya taha, is there put a ich on? Maya tah kalu, comma.
ஃபர்ஸ்ட் லைன்ல வந்து விகதாவ் ஈக்ஷான்னு போட்டிருக்கானுங்க. அது இவ எல்லாம் வேற மாதிரி.
Bigatha viksham.
விகதாவ் ஈக்ஷான்னு போட்டிருக்காது, தப்பல்லவா?
ஆமா bigatha, just not out.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Maya tah kalu, comma, kala shakti rakhila drishtam swabhavo picha, comma, pradur bhuya gunan vikhasya vidaduhu, that is there, remove it, put a visarga and a comma, vidaduhu tasya sahaya kriyam. मायातः खलु कालशक्तिरखिला दृष्टं स्वभावोऽपि च प्रादुर्भूय गुणान् विकास्य विदधुः तस्याः सहायक्रियाम्.
Rajesh, Kalu, Kapra or Kamarka.
Ama. Third line after khalu there's a comma.
मायाता खलु कालशक्तिरखिला दृष्टं स्वभावोऽपि च प्रादुर्भूय गुणान् विकास्य विदधुः तस्या क्रियाम् मायायातः खलु कालशक्तिरखिला
And the first mayatah khalu.
Oh, Maya, right. Sorry. Mayatah kalu kala shaktirakila drishtam swabhavopi cha pradurbhuya gunan vikasya vidaduhu tasya sahaya kriyam.
मायातः खलु कालशक्तिरखिल दृष्टं स्वभावोऽपि च प्रादुर्भूया गुणानि विकास्य विदधुः तस्या सहायक्रियाम् मायातः खलु कालशक्तिरखिल दृष्टं स्वभावोऽपि च प्रादुर्भूया गुणान् विकास्य विदधुः तस्या सहायक्रियाम्.
Stanza 4. Maya sannihito pravishta vapusha sakshiti gito bhavan bhedaistam pratibimbato vivishivan जीवोऽपि नैवापरः कालादि प्रतिबोधिता भवता संचोदिता च स्वयं माया सा खलु बुद्धितत्त्वमसृजत् योऽसौ महानुच्यते. So I'll do 4 and 5. I'll explain the meaning together later. Maya sannihito pravishta vapusha, comma, sakshiti gito bhavan, comma, bhedaistam pratibimbato vibhishivan, comma, jivopi naivaparaha. Maya sannihito pravishta vapusha sakshiti gito bhavan bhedaistam pratibimbato vibhishivan jivopi naivaparaha.
Maya sannihito pravishta vapusha sakshiti gito bhavan vedaistam pratibimbato vivishivan jivopi naivaparaha. Maya sannihito pravishta vapusha sakshiti gito bhavan vedaistam pratibimbato vivishivan jivopi naivaparaha.
माया सन्निहितो प्रवृष्ट वपुषा साक्षीति गीतो भवान् भेदैस्तां प्रतिबिम्बतो विविशिवान् जीवोऽपि नैवापरः. माया सन्निहितो प्रवृष्ट वपुषा
Pravishta. I think you're saying adding an extra ir there. Pravishta.
Okay. माया सन्निहितो प्रविष्ट वपुषा साक्षीति गीतो भवान् भेदैस्तां प्रतिबिम्बतो विविशिवान् जीवोऽपि नैवापरः.
कालादि प्रतिबोधिताथ भवता, comma, संचोदिता च स्वयं, comma, माया सा खलु, and then comma again, buddhi. The next word, I'm going to break it into 3, but then you can also say it together. Buddhi tattvam asrjat yosau, because that id and ya is becoming dya there. So tattvam asrjat yosau or tattvam asrjat yosau mahanuchyate. Kaladi pratibodita bhavata sanchodita cha swayam maya sa khalu buddhi tattvamasrjat yosau mahanuchyate.
Kaladi pratibodita bhavata sanchodita cha swayam maya sa kalu buddhi tattvamasrjat yosau mahanuchyate. Kaladi pratibodita bhavata sanchodita cha swayam maya sa kalu buddhi tattvamasrujat yosau mahanuchyate.
कालादि प्रतिबोधितात भवता संचोदिता च स्वयं माया सा खलु बुद्धि तत्त्वमसृजद्योऽसौ महानुच्यते कालादि प्रतिबोधितात भवता संचोदिता च स्वयं माया सा खलु बुद्धि तत्त्वमसृजद्योऽसौ महानुच्यते.
That's right. Tatrasau trigunaatmakopi cha mahan sattva pradhana swayam jivesmin khalu nirvikalpamahamid yudbodha nishpadakah chakresmin sabikalpa bodhakamahan tattvam mahan khalvasau sampushtam trigunaistamoti bahulam vishnu bhavat preranat. So like like we said earlier, right, that so from the Supreme Lord where everything is sleeping, now under the influence of Maya, so there's something else that is going to do all the work, because here it says very specifically that you are not under the influence of it. You are not under the influence of Maya. So now don't ask me in detail what Maya is. I don't know either, but it is something which is causing things to happen. So in the 15th chapter also, we discussed about this concept called that there's something called as Mula Prakriti, which is things from which or something from which things can come. That is the ultimate root or ultimate source, ultimate seed, however you want to call it. So from that, it says the first thing that is actually coming out is this concept of intelligence, or Mahat is coming out. That's why it says that the way Mahan Uchyate, that Mahat is first coming out. And initially, when everything comes out, when all the souls and everything are jivas are being born, it's all the same as the Paramatma that is there. It's all the same because all the Sattva, Tamas, Gunas are all in equilibrium, and the Sattva Guna is at the highest at that point. So they're all the same. But then from this Mahat comes this concept of Ahankara, or the I-ness, the concept of me or the concept of I. And when that starts happening, that's where it says that each of the individual jivas are assuming an identity. So I think when you follow some of the philosophical things, they say that we are all one with the universe. We are all one with the consciousness, right? They kind of, I think I explained the meaning of namaste, right? Means what is in me and what is in you is the same. And we are the same with the universe. That's the definition of it. And that's kind of what it says here is it says that initially everything is the same, but then individual identities start getting formed, which is the concept of Ahankara. So I think you may have to go and check the 15th chapter again, that because in that, it Kapilopakyanatla to Devahuti, it explains the same thing. The Prakriti is there. And then there are 24 other characteristics like Mahat, Ahankaram, and the various actions, organs, sense organs, everything is there. When this Prakriti is associated with any of those things, it forms a Jivatma. When it is not associated with any of those things, it is the Paramatma. So the only way it says is you have to not get associated with any of the other attributes of Prakriti, which is kind of the definition how it is getting, things are also getting formed, right? So it says the Mahat comes, and from that Mahat comes the concept of ego or individuality, right? Which is there. So Tatra.
Sorry. So then after each 100 years, when after the Pralayam, is the universe starting with, that single cell amoeba and then progressing through all the different life forms, and then
it's going to come later. It starts, in fact, the next stanza, I believe, it's going to come all the definition of what is even the concept of a sound, how is the concept of fire, everything. So it doesn't go with a single cell amoeba concept, it goes even higher and says even that definition, the formation of a sound, the formation of heat, the formation of touch, the formation of all of those things, the core concepts start forming first. And only from the core concept, once the core concepts are formed, then all these things are stitched together to form various regions, the 14 worlds, which comes at the end of this chapter. And then the various things start forming inside of that. So even for an amoeba to form, there should be some definition or some building block, whether it's an amoeba or something, there should be some starting building blocks. So right now, I think we are in the stage of that concept, what you call the core attributes of what is needed. Even before those are merged together to form an output, right? This is a pre-output at this point.
Very hard to understand.
I know it's very hard to understand, and this is, I'm sure you have to spend hundreds of years probably trying to understand this, right? So even I don't fully comprehend it. I just have a general idea. So tatrasau trigunatmakopi cha mahan, comma, sattva pradhanaha is there, put is sattva pradhana swayam, comma, jivesmin khalu, comma, nirvikalpam aham. You can kind of break it there. Nirvikalpam ahamit yudbodha nishpadakaha. Tatrasau trigunatmakopi cha mahan sattva pradhana swayam jivesmin khalu nirvikalpam ahamit yudbodha nishpadakaha.
Rajesh, a quick question. And the கல் வரும்போது அந்த அந்த ஒரு அந்த இடத்துல மட்டும் கரெக்டா we pause, right? What is இந்த ஜீவேஸ்மின் கலு அப்படி எல்லா இடத்துல கலு வரும்போது we give a pause, right? Why is that?
No, but nothing like apdi. I mean, the kalu is kind of meaning is like it's kind of like also. Think of it that way, right? So when you're kind of constructing the sentence, then it's a place where it's a reasonable logical pause all around.
Okay.
So also this comma and then the sentence goes, right? Think of it that way.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
Tatrasau trigunatmakopi cha mahan sattva-pradhana swayam jivesmin khalu nirvikalpamahamit yudbodha nishpadakaha. Tatrasau trigunatmakopi cha mahan sattva-pradhana swayam jivesmin khalu nirvikalpamahamit yudbodha nishpadakaha.
Tatrasau trigunatmikopi cha mahan sattva pradhana swayam jivesmin khalu nirvikalpa mahimit bodha nishpadikaha.
Nishpadakaha.
Okay. Tatrasau trigunatmakopi cha mahan sattva pradhana swayam jivesmin khalu nirvikalpa bodha nishpadakaha.
Shilata Guru, that's second line, second half, something nirvikalpam ahamit.
Nirvikalpa aham. Oh, ma, I wrote. Yeah, ma, I have.
Ma is there. If you can say it together, nirvikalpam ahamit is also fine. But if you're breaking it, nirvikalpam ahamit.
Okay.
You got it? Nirvikalpam ahamit.
Okay. Nirvikalpa mahamit.
I mean, you don't say it as nirvikalpa mahamit. Don't say that.
Okay.
I mean, you seem to be pausing slightly. That's why I'm stopping you there.
Oh,
you can
okay.
say nirvikalpam ahamit.
Okay.
Or you say it together, nirvikalpam ahamit.
Okay. I got it. Okay.
Chakresmin sabi kalpa bodhaka mahan tatvam mahan khalvasau, comma, that line no pause. Sampushtam trigunais tamoti bahulam, comma, Vishnu bhavat preranat. Chakresmin savikalpa bodhaka mahan tatvam mahan khalvasau sampushtam trigunais tamoti bahulam Vishnu bhavat preranat.
Chakresmin savikalpa bodhakamahan tatvam mahan kalvasau sampushtam trigunaistamoti bahulam Vishnu bhavat preranat. Chakresmin savikalpa bodhakamahan tatvam mahan kalvasau sampushtam trigunaistamoti bahulam Vishnu bhavat preranat.
Chakresmin savikalpa bodha mahan tatvam mahan khalvasau Sampushtam Trigunaasmamoti Bahulam Vishnu Bhavet Preranat.
This last line, Trigunais Tamoti.
Trigunaistamo. Okay. Chakraismin Savi Kalpa Bodha Mahata Bodhakamaham Tattvam Mahan Khalvasau Sampushtam Trigunaistamo, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sampushtam Trigunaistamoti Bahulam Vishnu Bhavet Preranat.
Stanza 6. Soham cha triguna kramat trividhatham asadhya vaikariko bhuyastaijasataamasa viti bhavan adhyena sattvatmana devanindriyamani no krita disha vatarkapashyashvino vannindrachutamitrakan viduvidhi Shri Rudra Sharirakan. Let's say 6 and 7 meaning together. Soham cha triguna kramat, comma, trividhatham asadhya vaikariko, comma, bhuyas taijasa tamasaviti bhavan. So there's in there, so bhavan and then comma. So you have an in and a na. So once you put a in and put a comma, the next word starts with the a. Adhyena sattvatmana. Soham cha triguna kramat trividhatham asadhya vaikariko bhuyas taijasataamasa viti bhavan adhyena sattvatmana.
Soham chatrigunakramat trividatham asadhya vaikariko bhuyastaijasataamasa iti bhavan adhyena sattvatmana. Soham chatrigunakramat trividatham asadhya vaikariko bhuyastaijasataamasa iti bhavan adhyena sattvatmana.
Narayaneeyam, the second line, tamasaviti.
In that
Second
tamasaviti.
Viti.
Iti dane vitiya.
V as in Victor, Viti.
Oh, viti chalma. Okay. Masa iti chali. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Soham cha trigunakramat trividhatma sadhya vaikariko bhuyastaijasatamasaviti bhavan adhyena sattvatmana.
The first line, Sridhar Garu, Trividhatham asadhya.
Trividhata, okay.
Trividhatham asadhya. Yeah.
Trividhatam, okay. Soham cha trigunakramat trividhamasa, right?
Trividhatham.
Trividhatam masadhya vaikariko bhuyastaijasatamasaviti bhavan adyena sattvatmana.
Devan indriya manino krita, then comma, disha vatarka pashyashvino, comma, vannindrachuta mitrakan vidu vidhi Shri Rudra Sharirakan. So the fourth line, there's no pause there. Devanindriyamani no krita disha vatarka pashyashvino vannindrachuta mitrakan vidu vidhi Shri Rudra Sharirakan.
Devanindriyamani no krita disha vatarka pashyashvino Vahnindra-achyuta mitrakan viduvidi Shri Rudra Sharirakan. Devanindriyamani no krita disha vatarka pashyashvino Vahnindra-achyuta mitrakan viduvidi Shri Rudra Sharirakan.
Devanindrayamani no krita Dishavatarkapashyashvino Vanindrachutamitrakan viduvidhi Shri Rudra Sharirakan. Devanindrayamani no krita Dishavatarkapashyashvino Vannindraachyutamitrakan vidhu vidhi Sri Rudra Sharirakan.
Okay. We'll just switch. I think I said Swami and Jayashree, right? Second half there.
Yeah.
Okay. Stanza 7. Bhuman manasa buddhyaham kritimila chittakya vrityanvitam tachantah karanam vibho tava balat satvamsha eva sujate jatastajasato dashendriya ganaha tattamasamshat punah tanmatram nabhaso marut purapate shabdho janitvad. This is a little bit tough chapter even to chant as well as to understand anyways. So anyway, so the way what happens in the last one, right? We spoke about the Mula Prakriti that was there. From that came the Mahat or the intelligence. From that intelligence, the next one that came was the Ahankara or the ego, the I-ness, individuality that came. So from that individuality, it says there are multiple types of that individuality based on Sattvic, Rajas, and Tamas gunas. So from that, the Sattvic gunas of the individuality, it says were born the Jnanendriyas and the Karmendriyas. The Jnanendriya, the sense organs. Karmendriya are the organs of action, hand, feet, and other things. And the sense organs are your eyes, nose, ears, and everything. And then also the concept of mind or consciousness is also there. And then in the last two stanzas, what it says is each of these things have an owner associated with it. And that's where it kind of says, like, for example, for eyes, which is one of your sense organ, it says it is Surya. Surya is the eye. For taste, which is just Varuna is the owner. And then for smell, the Ashwini Devata. So it says for each of these sense organs, each of these action organs, and for each of these things, there is an owner who is then also being responsible. So like I said earlier, the core building blocks are now getting formed. That's what is happening. And each of that needs to have an owner. And that's what is happening in the last two stanzas. So Bhuman Manasa Buddhyahankriti. So Buddhi Ahankriti. That's combined to form Buddhyahankriti. Milach Chittakya Vrityanvitam. And then a comma. So that line is continuous, no pause. Tachantaha is there, put a ich sound. Tachantah Karanam Vibho Tava Balat, comma. Satvamsha eva srijate. Bhuman manasa buddhyahankriti mila chittakhya vrityanvitam tachantah karanam vibho tava balat satvamsha eva srijate.
Bhuman manasa buddhyahankriti mila chittakya vrityanvitam tachantah karanam vibho tava balat satvamsha eva srijate. Bhuman manasa buddhyahankriti mila chittakya vrityanvitam tachantah karanam vibho tava balat satvamsha eva srijate.
भूमन्मानस बुद्ध्यहङ्कृतिमिलच्चित्ताख्यवृत्त्यन्वितं तच्चान्तःकरणं विभो तव बलात् सत्वांश एवासृजत्. भूमन्मानस बुद्ध्यहङ्कृतिमिलच्चित्ताख्यवृत्त्यन्वितं तच्चान्तःकरणं विभो तव बलात् सत्वांश एवासृजत्.
Jatas Taijasato Dashendriya Ganaha. That is there. Remove it. Visarga and a comma. Dashendriya Ganaha. Tattama Samshat Punaha. Put a Visarga again and a comma. Punaha. Next line also the is goes away. So Tanmatram Nabhaso Marut Purapate, comma. Shabdojani Twadbalat. Jatastajasato dashendriya ganaha tattamasamshat punaha tanmatram nabhaso marut purapate shabdo janitvad.
Jatastajasato dashendriya ganaha tattamasamshat punaha तन्मात्रं नभसो मरुत्पुरपते शब्दो जनित्वद्बलात् तैजसतो दशेन्द्रियगणः तत्तामसांशात् पुनः तन्मात्रं नभसो मरुत्पुरपते शब्दो जनित्वद्बलात्
जातस्तैजसतो दशेन्द्रियगणः तत्तामसांशात् पुनः तन्मात्रं नभसो मरुत्पुरपते शब्दो जनित्वद्बलात् जातस्तैजसतो दशेन्द्रियगणः तत्तामसांशात् पुनः तन्मात्रं नभसो मरुत्पुरपते शब्दो जनित्वद्बलात्.
Sanjay. Shabdhat vyom tatah sasarjita vibho sparsham tato marutam tasmadrupamato mahotacharasam toyam cha gandham mahim evam madava purva kalanat adhyatya dharman vitam bhuta gramamimam tvameva bhagavan prakashayastamasat. So just to recap, so we spoke about how that ahankara had the sattvic, rajas, tamas gunas, and the sattvic gunas came your mind and the concept of the sense organs, the act, and then the organs of actions, karmendriya, jnanendriya, all of that came from the sattvic portion. Now from the tamasic portion, he says the two things which come are the pancha bhutas and the tanmatras, which is the concept of your sound, the concept of sound, touch, smell. And he says these two are connected and they keep building on each other. For example, he says first the concept of space and sound, because space, if you think of it, it's how it's connected is space. It says there's only sound in space. So that is the first one. Then from that, it says comes air, because air has the concept of touch and sound. So when air is wishing through, you can hear the air blowing and you can also feel the air. You can't feel space. So space has just sound. The next one that comes is air, which has got the concept of sound and also feel, touch. Next is the fire, which comes because fire has got your touch. You can feel fire. You can hear fire when something is burning hot. You can hear the flames. And then the third one is the concept of sound, which is that you can hear it. So it's got a form. So fire, when it's, you see the homum, it is taking different shapes and different forms, right? So the fire has forms. So it's building on each other. Next, water comes. So water has all of the above attributes, plus it has also got the attribute of taste. You can taste salty water, sweet water, depending on spring water, it's coming from the taste. And the last one that comes is the concept of earth, which has got all the above attributes, plus the concept of smell, right? So he said that's how all these core ingredients or building blocks are getting built, right? Which are the panchabhutas and then tanmatras, and they're all connected to each other and they're building on top of each other. That's what it says. So shabdhat vyoma, comma, tataha, and then put is there, tatas sasarjita vibho sparsham tato marutam, comma, tasmad rupamato mahota charasam, comma, toyam ja gandham mahim.
Rajesh, and the Vibho Kaparam Kamarka.
The Shabdat Vyoma, comma, then end of the line, comma. First line.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
Shabdat Vyoma tatasasarjita vibho sparsham tato marutam tasmadrupamato mahotacharasam toyam cha gandham mahim.
शब्दात् व्योम ततः ससर्जित विभो स्पर्शं ततो मारुतं तस्माद्रूपमतो महोतचरसं तोयं च गन्धं महीम्. शब्दात् व्योम ततः ससर्जित विभो स्पर्शं ततो मारुतं तस्माद्रूपमतो महोतचरसं तोयं च गन्धं महीम्.
शब्दाद् व्योम ततः ससर्जित विभो स्पर्शं ततो मारुतं तस्माद् रूपमथो महोऽथ चरसं तोयं च गन्धं महीम् शब्दात् व्योम ततः ससर्जित विभो स्पर्शं तथो मारुतम् तस्माद्रूपमतो महोऽथ च रसं तोयं च गन्धं महीम्
एवं माधव पूर्व kalanath. So the da that you have there, put a it and then a comma. Purva kalanath. Next word starts with the a. Adhyadhya dharmanvitam, comma. Bhuta gramamimam tvameva bhagavan, comma. Prakashayas tamasat. एवं माधव पूर्व कलनाथ आध्याद्य धर्मान्वितं भूतग्राममिमं त्वमेव भगवन् प्राकाशयस्तामसात्.
एवं माधव पूर्व कलनात् आद्याद्य धर्मान्वितं भूतग्राममिमं त्वमेव भगवन् प्राकाशयस्तामसात्. एवं माधव पूर्व कलनात् आद्याद्य धर्मान्वितं भूतग्राममिमं त्वमेव भगवन् प्राकाशयस्तामसात्.
एवं माधव पूर्व कलनात् आध्यात्य धर्मान्वितं भूतग्राममिमं त्वमेव भगवन् प्राकाशयस्तामसात्. एवं माधव पूर्व कलनात् आध्यात्य धर्मान्वितं भूतग्राममिमं त्वमेव भगवन् प्राकाशयस्तामसात्.
Answer 9. Ethe bhutaganastathendriyaganaः देवाश्च जाताः पृतं नोषे कुर्भुवनाण्डनिर्मिति विधौ देवैरमीभिस्तदा त्वं नानाविधसूक्तिभिर्नुत गुणः तत्त्वान्यमून्याभिषन् चेष्टाशक्तिमुदीर्यता निघटयन् हैरण्यमण्डं व्यधाः. So, like when all these, like we saw sense organs, organs of action, all these things are formed, and the preceding deities, we identified each one has an individual deity who is there, but they themselves on their own could not do anything. They could not take it to the next step. So here it says, you then, O Lord, you then entered into each of them. So you were again part of this, you entered into each of them. And then, like we said earlier, those were the core building blocks. And then you combined all of this with various combinations. You then first, number one that came was the Hiranya Andham, the Hiranya Garbha egg. Egg means not necessarily it's got a physical shell. It is the concept of everything is contained within one item, right? So, and then the next stanza will talk about what's inside that. So the Hiranya Andham, the golden egg, was then formed by a combination of all of these things, with you entering into each of the respective deities as well. I think the concept of egg itself is like very similar to what's happening, like, a hen, lays an egg and out of it a life is born. That's the whole concept. Is the definition of egg here is something which is the source inside which things happen or life happens, right? That's the concept here. So, ete bhuta ganas tatendriya ganaha, put a visarga there, ganaha, comma, devascha jataha, is there, put a f, jatah, pritang, ing sound at the end, pritang, and then put a plus. No shekur bhuvananda nirmiti vidhau, comma, devaira mibhistada. So one comma after ganaha in the first line, then a plus, and then nirmiti vidhau, comma. Ete bhutaganastatendriyaganaha devascha jatah pratang noshe kurbhuvananda nirmiti vidhau devairami.
Ete bhutaganastatendriyaganaha devascha jatah pratang noshe kurbhuvananda nirmiti vidhau devairami bistada. एते ततेन्द्रियगणाः देवाश्च जातः पृतं नोषे कुर्भुवनाण्ड निर्मितिविधौ देवैरमीभिस्तदा
एते भूतगणस्तथेन्द्रियगणाः देवाश्च जाताः पृथङ् नोषे कुर्भुवनाण्डनिर्मितिविधौ देवैरमीभिस्तदा एते भूतगणस्तथेन्द्रियगणाः देवाश्च जाताः पृथङ् नोषे कुर्भुवनाण्डनिर्मितिविधौ देवैरमीभिस्तदा
ராஜேஷ்
ஆ.
ஒரே ஒரு இதுல இந்த தேவாஷ்ச ஜாதா பிருத்தக்னு இருக்கு புக்ல பிருத்தங்னு போட்டுக்கணுமா?
ஆமா, அது வந்து இங்க், அது வந்து எப்படின்னாக்கா அந்த இட்ஸ் பிருத்தக் இக்கு பிளஸ் அந்த நோ, அந்த நா இஸ் கமிங் ரைட். ஸோ அதனால இட் பிகம்ஸ் இங். அந்த இக்கு the root word is பிருத்தக் only, and then
எந்தலயும் பிருத்தக்கு தான் இருக்கு.
ஆமா, and then the no அப்படின்னு next word வருது இல்லையா? So when you put a comma or you don't say it continuously, it's பிருத்தக் only. But because you are saying it continuously, it becomes pratang ing, and then no shekur. That's the change. Okay, so if you have just pratak, just change it to ing. Tvam nanabhida suktibhir nuta gunaha. So remove that is visarga and a comma. Tatvanya munya vishan. So put a in at the end of that line. Vishan. And then a comma. Tatvanya munya vishan, comma. Next line, that ish goes away. Cheshta shaktim udirya thani ghatayan, comma. Hairanyam andam, that's the word, Hairanyam andam vyadaha. So third line, there is no comma till the end. Tvam nanabhida suktibhir nuta, sorry, gunaha kapra comma irukku. Tvam nanabhida suktibhir nuta gunaha tatvanya munya vishanhe cheshta shakti mudiryata nighatayan hairanyamandham vyadaha.
So is there comma after Khadayan, Rajesh?
Ghatayan, yeah, after Ghatayan.
Okay.
त्वं नानाविध सूक्तिभिर्नुतगुणः तत्त्वान्यमून्या विशन् चेष्टाशक्तिमुदीर्यतानि घटयन् हैरण्यमण्डं व्यदाः त्वं नानाविध सूक्तिभिर्नुतगुणः तत्त्वान्यमून्या विशन् चेष्टाशक्तिमुदीर्यतानि घटयन् हैरण्यमण्डं व्यदाः
त्वं नानाविध सूक्तिभिर्नुतगणः तत्त्वान्यमून्या विशन् चेष्टा शक्तिमुदीर्यतानि घटयन् हैरण्यमण्डं व्यधाः.
Jayesh, third line, nuta gunaha. You said ganaha, third line. Nuta gunaha.
Okay. त्वं नानाविध सूक्तिभिर्नुतगुणः तत्त्वान्यमून्या विशन् चेष्टा शक्तिमुदीर्यतानि घटयन् हैरण्यमण्डं व्यदाः.
That's certain. Andham tat khalu पूर्वसृष्टसलिले तिष्ठत् सहस्रं समाः निर्भिन्दन्न कृताश्चतुर्दश जगद्रूपं विराडाह्वयम् साहस्रैः करपादमूर्धनिवहैः निःशेषजीवात्मको निर्भातोऽसि मरुत्पुराधिपसमां त्रायस्व सर्वामयात्. So like I said, all of these things merged. You went into each of those owners and you formed the Brahmanda. That Hiranya Andham was there. So that Brahmanda remained in that state for again several thousands of years. It was just remaining in that state. And then you, O Lord, again entered into that Brahmanda and then the 14 worlds got created. So the 14 worlds are what are called as the Virat. That's the meaning of the root. That's the meaning of the word Virat is the 14 worlds, right? So since Swami knows, when you do pranayama, right, we kind of say Om Bhuhu Bhuvaha Suvaha Mahaha Janaha Tapaha, right? Govum Satyam. So those are the words which are there. So Bhuhu, it starts with the earth, and then Bhuvaha Suvaha Mahaha Janaha Tapaha Satya Lokam. So those are all the words which are on the earth, and then the world. By earth, Bhuhu doesn't mean just the earth. It's a plane in which the earth is, right? There are multiple other things in that plane as well, and then all the other worlds which are on top, and then there are the other worlds which are in planes which are below that, which is Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Rasatala, Talatala, Mahatala, Patala, all of that. So all these are together 14. So that 14 is generally called as Triloka. They call them as 3 worlds, which means the bottom 7 worlds are just grouped as one world. Then the middle is grouped as one world, and then the top 6 are grouped as another one world. So it's normally also said as 3 worlds, but totally it is 14 worlds, and all the 14 worlds together are called as a Virat. So in this, once this Virat was formed, you then shone, or you were shining across this, right? Sahasraihi Karapada Murdhanevahi, with thousands. I think this is the beginning of Purusha Suktam, starts with Sahasra Shirsha Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapad. So you are like covering Sahasra Shirsha means thousands of heads. It doesn't mean 1,000 heads, it's thousands of heads, right? Sahasrakshaha means thousands of eyes, thousands of feet, right? Essentially, it is saying you're universal, because thousands of eyes means what you can see everything. That's what the meaning is, right? Thousands of feet means you can go everywhere. You're omnipresent. So that's what here it also says. Once that 14 worlds were formed, then you then shined, very well across this entire 14 worlds with thousands of heads, thousands of eyes, and thousands of feet. Oh Lord of Guru Vayu, please protect me. So Andam Tat Khalu, comma, Purva Srishta Salile Tishtat Sahasram Samaha, comma, Nirbhindan Nakritash Chatur Dasha Jagadrupam Viradahvayam. So second line, there is no pause. Andam Tat Khalu Purva Srishta Salile Tishtat Sahasram Samaha Nirbhindan Nakritash Chatur Dasha Jagadrupam Viradahvayam.
Andam tatkalu purvasrishta salile tishtat sahasram samaha nirbindan nakritash chaturdasa jagadrupam viradahvayam. Andam tatkalu purvasrishta salile tishtat sahasram samaha Nirbindan Nakritash Chatur Dasha Jagadrupam Viradahvayam.
Andam tat khalu purvasrishta salile tishtat sahasram samaha nirbhindan nakritas chatur dasha jagadrupam viradahvayam. Andam tat khalu Purvasrishta salile tishtat sahasram samaha nirbhindan nakritas chaturdasha jagadrupam viradahvayam.
Sahasraihi is there, put a if sound. Sahasraih Karapada Murdha Nivahaihi. So put a visarga and a comma there. Nivahaihi. Next word on top of that ni, you'll have a ir. You can remove that. Nishesha Jivatmako, comma. Nirbhatosi, and then a comma, Marutpura Dhipa Samam Trayasva Sarvamayat. Sahasraih Karapada Murdhanivahaihi Nishesha Jivatmako Nirbhatosi Marutpura Dhipa Samam Trayasva Sarvamayat.
Sahasraih Karapada Murda Nivahaihi Nishesha Jivatmako Nirbhatoshi Marutpura Dipasamam त्रायस्व सर्वामयात् साहस्रैः करपादमूर्ध निवहैः निःशेषजीवात्मको निर्भातोऽसि मरुत्पुराधिपसमां त्रायस्व सर्वामयात्
साहस्रैः करपादमूर्धनिवहैः निःशेषजीवात्मको निर्भातोऽसि मरुत्पुराधिपसमां त्रायस्व सर्वामयात् साहस्रैः करपादमूर्धनिवहैः निःशेषजीवात्मको निर्भातोऽसि मरुत्पुराधिपसमां त्रायस्व सर्वामयात्. Sri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha.
Yeah. We'll just do one stanza of the 6th chapter today and then we can stop. So like the 6th chapter we said is now that the 14 worlds have got formed in the last stanza. So now there's a Vishwarupam which is different from Virat Swarupam. The Vishwarupam is what Krishna showed in the Mahabharata, right? So when you Google Vishwarupam, right, it shows with again several heads and everything, and the entire world is there, all these gods are there, everybody is there. That is a Vishwarupam. The Virat Rupam is different. The Virat Rupam is each part of the Lord's body is how the 14 worlds that we described earlier are a part of the Lord's body. So if you take the 14 worlds and then you put the form of the Lord onto the 14 worlds, that is a Virat Rupam. So this chapter is a description of that. So it will kind of say each part of your body is this world. This is where it is. Kind of that's what it's different between Virat Rupam and Vishwarupam are two different things completely.
So in Vishwarupam, the 14 worlds are not visible.
It's there, but it's a Vishwarupam is a what do you call? It's a form which you can see, or not you. I mean like Arjuna saw the Vishwarupam, right? So the Lord showed his form and said everything is inside him. That's a Vishwarupam. Virat Rupam is not a physical lookable form. It is just saying that you are the 14 worlds.
Okay.
That's it. So it is not like it's a Vishwarupam is like something Arjuna is seeing, right? So he's seeing that everything is inside the Lord. But Virat Rupam is saying, hey, this Athala, Sutala, Vitala, each of them are portions of your bodies. So if I stitch all this Hiranya Andam together into one shape or one person, that is you. That's what it is saying.
Okay.
So it is not like I wouldn't describe it as like a form, a visual form like a Vishwarupam. That's all. But it's kind of, Vishwarupam encompasses everything as well. So
when Yashoda saw in Krishna's mouth, was that like, is it different than these two?
It's different because it was not 5 minutes. So when Yashoda saw, she did not see the Vishwarupam. She just saw everything inside the mouth.
Okay.
Right? The Vishwarupam form when Krishna took to show to Arjuna, that was like Arjuna saw like everything was there and Krishna was there standing and everything was there. And Yashoda was seeing, remember, right? She sees inside his mouth, she sees all the worlds, she sees the planets, she sees Earth, she sees herself, she sees the house. So she sees everything inside the mouth. So it's just at the end of the day, it's the same thing. I'm just saying it's different shape. That's
Okay.
all, right? Anyway, I think we're out on time, so we can just stop here and we'll start the 6th thing next class. Yes, sir. Sandhanandhavabodhatmakamanupamitam kaladeshavadibhyam nirmuktam nityamuktam nigamashatasahasrena nirbhasyamanam aspashtam drishtamatre punarurupurushartatmakam brahmatattvam tattavad sakshat gurupavanapure hanta bhagyam jananam kahena vacha manasendriyerva बुद्ध्यात्मना भा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि.